Max, back to you.
3 Muslim students were shot and killed in Chapel Hill, North Carolina recently. The incident has started a nationwide debate about the portrayal of Muslims in the media. Citrus TV's correspondent Abby Budeman sat down with Charisse Laprie, the Newhouse School, to talk about it.
We will be talking to Professor Laprie to talk about the matter in more depth. Thank you so much for being with us today, Professor.
Not a problem.
So, Professor, what do you think would be the reason behind the shooter choosing these 3 neighbors out of all the neighbors out of these parking issues?
Well, as you already mentioned, there's been a lot of coverage about how this individual, the alleged shooter, had a series of parking skirmishes with the other residents. And I've been particularly interested or taken with the idea of why he would choose to shoot these 3 individuals, even though it was pervasive. Having said that, I don't know the race of the other people in his community. However, when we're discussing the representation of Muslims and our social understanding of Muslims, much of that has been based in the stigmatization and trivialization of Muslims in mainstream media. By stigmatization, I mean the idea that they are targeted negatively, they're portrayed as terrorists, and often very little else. They're portrayed as anti-American. Their ideology is often juxtaposed in the popular discourse with American way of life. By trivialized, I mean to say exactly that. They are only presented as terrorists. Sometimes, and as I mentioned when we were talking earlier, that this representation is long-standing, right? So you can go back to Bugs Bunny cartoons, you can go back to Hanna-Barbera cartoons and see Arabs, not Muslims, right? Because we weren't talking about religion at the time, just Arabs, trivialized, cartoonish Arabs being the butt end of every single joke. And that's what I mean by trivialized in specific. So when we're surrounded by these images, we begin to think of Muslims of less than human.
Okay. So you would definitely say that the stigmatization of Muslims would be a driving force behind the shooter committing that action towards the 3 Muslims in UNC.
I wouldn't say it was a driving force, right? Because when we say driving force, we imply that this is why he killed them. I believe the driving force was parking. I will go ahead and take that at face value. But the truth is, why would these people be considered more expendable in this problem he had with his entire community? And when we see a certain group as expendable over and over again because it's trivialized, then we think of it less as killing people, right? We've gone out of our way to dehumanize them and make them less than people, and therefore we're not actually killing people. That is what epithets do, racial epithets. I'm not referring to you as a man, I'm referring to you as some other thing, or I'm not referring to you as a woman, I'm referring to you as some other thing that is less than human. Okay. And when I come to believe that you're less than human, it's easier for me to take your life.
Okay. So in just our last 30 seconds, Professor, do you think this representation is realistic or in any way fair?
I don't think any representation of any group is fair, because media is designed not to represent an individual, but to represent someone's perception of said individual. Okay. So I don't think that any representation is fair, but we won't get to a fair representation until we have more people from that group telling their stories in a more mainstream, widespread audience reach.
Okay. Thank you so much, Professor.
So I just moved in.